Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us here this week at Oakridge Student Ministries. Welcome and Happy New Year. My name's Jeff, and I'm the Youth and Young Adult Minister here at OPC. And this week we're starting a new series called Connect the Dots. And over the next few weeks, we're going to spend some time talking about how faith can feel a lot like those connect the dots images. Because understanding faith and how to have a relationship with Jesus doesn't always seem clear at first. It can be confusing, but kind of like the puzzles that you used to do as a kid, as we begin to grow in our faith, we start to connect those dots to each other and things start to make sense. The picture starts to appear. Have you ever been super confused about something? Maybe once you started to ask questions and get more information, that super confused becomes a little bit clearer. You connect those dots, and suddenly that math problem makes more sense. Or the science, or the spelling. I'm so bad at spelling. Anyways, we all know what it's like to not understand something. It can be really frustrating when it seems that something should help us, but just makes it worse. Maybe it's a saying your math teacher taught you to help you remember an equation, but it only confused you even more. Or your soccer coach made you do the same drill over and over and over again, and you had no idea how it would help you win the game the next week. You knew it was supposed to be helpful, but you were just more concerned and confused about how it would actually be helpful. Have you ever felt that way when it comes to your faith? Maybe you've learned something new at church, or read something in the Bible, or even talked to somebody that's wiser than you, and it seemed like it was supposed to be important to you. It seemed like something that should help you grow in your faith or feel closer to God. But if you're honest, you're not really sure how. You just left more confused than when you started. If you're anything like me, then you've probably heard people talk about all kinds of different things that can help you grow in your faith. Things like prayer, or reading the Bible, or listening to worship music, or maybe coming to church every week, or talking to older and wiser people in your life. And you know what? If I'm honest with you, I've said all of those things to you. But no matter what you've heard people say about it, what it looks like to grow in your faith, it probably has one thing in common. And that thing is more. We think that growing in our faith means knowing more, being more, learning more, or doing more. If we want to connect the dots in our faith, it means there has to be more than there is right now. Some people think that you can grow in your faith by simply coming to church, because the more you show up at church, the more you'll know about God, right? Well, we all come to church for different reasons. Some of us are here because we have to be here. Some of us are here because of our friends, or the girl or guy across the aisle from you right now, or the fun games, or the free food. Some of you come to church because you're curious about this whole God thing, about this faith in Jesus. And some of you are here because you want to grow in your faith. None of those reasons are bad, but the truth is, perfect church attendance isn't a guaranteed way to connect the dots in your faith. Can you really grow in your faith just by coming to the church building? Well, yes, you may learn some new things about what it means to grow in faith, but no, just being in the building, being in church, doesn't make you a Christian any more than being in a garage makes you a car. So if just showing up more and getting more information aren't the secrets to connecting the dots in your faith, then what will connect those dots? If God wants your faith to grow, how exactly do you do that? Sometimes growing in our faith can feel a lot like connecting the dots. You have this idea of what having faith in Jesus looked like. But like connect the dots, you don't have it all figured out yet. Guess what? That's okay. Connecting the dots is the fun part, because with every dot you connect, you start to see a clearer picture. How exactly can you connect the dots in this whole faith thing? Well, there's someone who can help us with that. Help us understand what it looks like to grow in our faith right now. And whether you're really excited about talking about growing your faith, or you're not even sure if you want to, I think it's someone that can help you, not necessarily something that you need to do. That someone is Jesus, because knowing Jesus changes everything. So here's where we pick up with Jesus during his time here on earth. The things that Jesus did and experienced while he was here were recorded by some of his closest followers so that we can learn about them still today. On the day that we're going to pick up, Jesus was with his friends, and a big group of people had gathered to hear what Jesus had to say. They wanted to know how they could grow in their faith. They wanted Jesus to help them connect those dots. So Jesus went up on the side of a mountain to teach. And what Jesus said about growing in their faith was surprising to many people, because just like us, they thought that growing deeper in their faith was about what they knew about God. It was about the information. But Jesus knew that when it comes to faith, what we know is not nearly as important as what we do. At the end of that sermon, Jesus started talking about houses. While that sounds kind of random, there was always a point to Jesus' words. So here's what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 and 25. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on a solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the flood waters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. Okay, so none of us probably know all that much about building houses. So let's break this down really quickly. Every house has a foundation that's built on top of, in Jesus' day, or right into the rock. And then that foundation, once it's laid firm, flat, straight, strong, a house is built on top of that. So in most of your houses, that foundation is probably the basement. And the foundation is what keeps the house standing strong once it's built. So deciding to build a house with rock as the foundation probably seems like a really good idea. Jesus said that we can have our faith built on a weak, unstable foundation, or we can have our faith built on strong, sturdy foundation. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely want the kind of faith that's built on a strong foundation. So how do we get it? Well, let's look back at how Jesus started his story. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 24, he says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Jesus said that the reason the house in his story made it through the storm wasn't just because the people who built it had all the right information. It wasn't just about what they knew. The reason the house stood firm was also because the builders acted on their knowledge. They actually built their house on the rock. They applied what they knew was good and wise and right. And because they did, the house could make it through a storm. And the same is true about our faith, because actions can grow your faith. Jesus said that the key to growing a deep faith is in the doing. In other words, while it's important to learn and know about God, having a strong and deep faith requires more. We also have to put into action what we know. It's doing what we know God has called us to do, because actions can grow your faith. See, God wants you to grow in your faith. God wants your faith to grow. God wants you to see the dots connected and to develop a deeper, stronger faith. And that means putting what you know into action. And I think we can start taking action by doing these two things. First, learn. This is just the first step. If we want to connect the dots and grow in our faith, we have to start by knowing what God says about that. We have to know what God is asking us to do in order to actually do it, right? So start by learning what God asks people to do to grow their faith. And then secondly, do. This seems really simple, but take that thing that you learned and put it into action. Actually put the hands and feet to the words that Jesus are telling us. Do something with the information that you've been given. Put it into practice in your life. Take action to grow your faith. Remember, actions can grow your faith. So, as we work on connecting the dots to build a stronger, deeper faith together, let's commit to applying some of what we've learned about faith by acting on it this week. So as we wrap up, I want you to think about this question. What's one question you have about growing in your faith.